What's with the mushroom and gravy? This is cooking stream. Welcome in, Mike. Yes, cooking. Jimmy Henderson is Hilda's husband.
This was a live stream on the Chico Sears channel from 2021. This is the first instance on YouTube that I'm aware of where the identity of Gilda's husband was revealed. Frank was also in the chat at this moment. Here he is under the name Mushrooms and Gravy. Someone in the chat had just mentioned that the name of Gilda's husband is Jimmy Jeniston. Frank immediately responded with the lie that Gilda isn't married. Anyone who has followed Frank for a while has long suspected that this was complete bullshit.
Well, for me, Mr. Happy, yeah, it's their own problem. You know, they know that what is wrong and what is right. You don't know of any such person.
Frank claims he's never heard of Jimmy Jeniston. Well, this only leaves us with two possibilities. Either Gilda has been keeping a dark secret from Frank for a very long time, or Frank is lying. I think we know which of those is the case here.
They are separated, is still married. Yes, and if you are married and your marriage is not annulled, even if you are separated, you are still married. So that's why if you want to marry to other people, you need to annul first your first marriage. You need to annul first, even if you are separated. Because here in the Philippines is without no divorce, just only annulment. No need annul if no marriage.
Frank doubles down on his lie that Gilda isn't married.
So that is the law here in the Philippines. Because even if you are separated and not filing annulled, you is still married.
A few minutes earlier in the live stream, Chi discusses whether having a romantic relationship with a married woman in the Philippines is illegal.
Mr. Happy said, is adultery legally permitted in the Philippines if the husband says it is okay for someone to date his wife? Legally permitted in the Philippines. It's not legal. That's why it's adultery. You're going into jail, Mr. Happy. Is Battaglia legally allowed to live with Hilda if Hilda's husband says, is it okay? No, because they have still have a law with that.
You hear that, Frank? Illegal, illegal, illegal. No exceptions. You and Gilda are officially breaking the law and have been doing so for 6 years. Frank had had enough by this point. He was getting clobbered on this live stream. His illegal relationship with Gilda was getting exposed, so he made an excuse to cut and run. So, how is adultery actually defined by the legal system in the Philippines? According to Article 333 of the Revised Penal Code, the crime of adultery is committed by any married woman who shall have sexual intercourse with a man not her husband, and by the man who has carnal knowledge of her knowing her to be married, even if the marriage be subsequently declared void. You heard that right. Both Frank and Gilda are considered criminals in the eyes of Philippine law. The facts of the matter are unambiguous. There are no exceptions to the rule, no excuses that Frank can make. And as we will demonstrate in a moment, it can be definitively established that Gilda Jeniston is indeed the lawfully wedded spouse of Jimmy Jeniston. The law in this regard could not be any more clear. If a man engages in sexual intercourse with a married woman, both parties are equally culpable. This is a matter of settled law, not open to interpretation or debate. Frank is guilty. Gilda is guilty. Full stop. It's as simple as that. It also bears mentioning that each instance of sexual intercourse constitutes a distinct violation of the law, a separate criminal offense. The crime of adultery carries a maximum penalty of 6 years imprisonment. This reality could potentially result in a significant amount of time locked in the slammer for both Frank and Gilda.
Yeah, just open.
Loud. Let him hear you. Loud and proud.
Okay, you can come here so we can talk face to face.
Frank's habitual lying extends to virtually every aspect of his life. His relationship with Gilda is no exception. Let's review some of the bullshit he's repeated about this relationship over the years. The first notion we can call bullshit on is the bogus claim that he and Gilda have a great relationship, such a wonderful relationship, in fact, that he dismisses any suggestion of flaws in their dynamic by claiming that those who observe these cracks in the facade are just jealous. One might wonder what there is to be envious of. In actuality, the silly claim that anyone is jealous of his relationship is nothing but a defense mechanism. Frank saying you're just jealous is his way of disregarding and dismissing those who voice the truth. Let's face it, while they've almost certainly developed some sense of intimate familiarity and a degree of comfort with one another as a natural result of cohabitating together over the years, their so-called chemistry is stiff, awkward, and forced at best. Sure, no relationship is perfect, but actions speak louder than words. Anything that's ever been displayed in an attempt to demonstrate relational chemistry is far from anything anyone would classify as wonderful.
Happy anniversary to me and Gilda. And we're going to celebrate it.
Strong like a stone.
Oh, dripping with enthusiasm, folks. Unfortunately for Gilda, Frank also exhibits a pattern of verbal abuse. As anyone who has ever known Frank is aware, he is capable of shifting abruptly from a seemingly calm demeanor to explosive anger with little or no provocation at all.
Is that correct? Am I correct about that, Gilda? Private school? Hello? Frank to Gilda. Frank to Gilda. She's 2 feet away from me and she don't even hear me. Frank to Gilda. Frank to Gilda. Can you hear me? You're 1 foot away from me. Can you hear me? Or is your headphone net stuck in your fucking ear? Of course not. You're 2 feet away from me and you didn't hear a fucking word I said, did you?
I put headset.
I don't know, man. You can put headsets on me and I could hear something and I'm half deaf in one fucking ear.
Frank attempted to downplay this display of toxic behavior by suggesting this was typical of spats that all couples experience on occasion. This is nonsense. This type of quick-tempered anger goes far beyond the occasional spat. This constitutes a significant anger management problem, causing undue hardship and suffering for Gilda as a result of Frank's inability to regulate his unstable emotions. Let's look at another instance where Frank exhibits this same sort of toxic pattern of verbal abuse towards Gilda. First, a bit of background context. Frank had recently returned from what was for him a frustrating trip to the Cebu mainland. The return trip home had been disrupted by a storm, causing ferry services to Santa Fe to be postponed for 2 days. This resulted in Frank incurring additional expenses for his stay at a resort during the delay. Furthermore, Frank was irate by the fact that Gilda had procured tickets at an elevated price to secure a spot on one of the first available ferries. Given that Frank lives on a welfare income, his preoccupation with money is well known, and leading up to this outburst of anger, he had spent the morning making various accusations, alleging that Gilda was greedy, only interested in his money, and that all Filipinos were inherently corrupt.
I mean, she's free with my money. She just gives it, here, take this. I'm the one that watches the money. She's the one that spends it.
Keep in mind, with regards to the ferry tickets, we're talking about a very small amount of money here.
Nobody go inside the port if you don't want to pay to go inside. No tries to pick up you in the port if you don't pay extra pay.
Everything's extra, as she said. You know, then nobody's going to do anything unless you pay them extra. Nobody wants to just do their regular job. You know, everybody.
Sometimes you're listening and understand what inside in your surrounding, so you understand.
Oh, I understand completely what's going on out here. It's called greed.
Something.
It's called greed. It's called greed.
Even Filipino, they do that.
No
They
kidding.
pay
You mean
extra.
Filipinos do that? Really? I didn't know that.
The Filipino do extra.
Oh,
That
really?
person there in Battaglia,
I didn't know this.
give 500 pesos to get a ticket.
You want to argue with me? You want to fucking argue with me on a live show?
I'm not arguing with you.
Don't fucking argue with
I
me.
just tell you because I'm sick listening.
At this point, Frank mutes the live stream for a good 10 or 15 seconds. One can only imagine what he said when no one was listening, given what he was screaming about while the mic was on.
Boy, I'll tell you, this is the Filipino attitude. And if I disagree with her, I'm going to let her know. Love or not. Don't forget, you got a fucking Filipina Love or not, you set her straight if she's wrong, because you have your own opinion too. I'll be damned if I'm not going to express my opinion.
And if Gilda dares to voice her thoughts, she's met with swift, harsh opposition. Frank silences her immediately. This is a recurring behavioral pattern with Frank with everyone, who insists on always being right, always trying to control what other people say or whether they can even speak at all. Any attempt to question or dispute him is met with attempts to silence, intimidate, and overpower the challenger. This toxic, controlling behavior lies at the heart of Frank's insecure personality.
That fucking Filipinos are fucking greedy motherfuckers. When it comes to any business at all, there's no favor system out here. There's no favor system out here at all. It's all about money. It's all about money.
Frank's toxic behavior is a recurring pattern and well known among everyone who knows him. These are not one-off occurrences. He constantly needs to be in control, trying to silence and intimidate anyone who challenges him. This controlling demeanor is a hallmark of Frank's weak, fragile temperament. This results in Gilda constantly having to be cautious around Frank, walking on eggshells to anticipate his moods in order to avoid triggering his explosive anger over the smallest little matters. If Frank behaves like this in public on a live stream, imagine what he's like when no one else is looking. It's clear that this is not a healthy or wonderful relationship. Moving on to the second big lie. Perhaps one of Frank's biggest lies about his relationship with Gilda was his long-held assertion that he and Gilda were married. Most people were skeptical about this claim, despite the absence of concrete evidence to prove otherwise. But as time went on, the truth came to light, and it became clear that Frank's claims of being married to Gilda were bullshit. This brings us to big lie number 3. Not only had Frank been lying for years, saying that he and Gilda were married, routinely referring to Gilda as his wife, but that they had flown to Singapore to officially tie the knot. Once again, total nonsense. Peppering in elaborate details like this is his way of attempting to lend credibility to his lies.
Big reveal today, at least on one topic, me. And we're going to tell you something that we haven't admitted to, but there's a reason why we said what we did. And I didn't feel it was anybody's business to know otherwise. So we're going to get that out of the way so they can't use that on me as another topic matter about me lying about something. So we're going to get everything out of the way. The first thing I'm going to start with is Frank married to Gilda. No, we're not married.
Frank knew it was time to come clean. He knew that nobody was buying the bullshit anymore, so he felt compelled to try and lift the burden he felt, constantly observing everyone pointing out that he's been lying for years about being married to Gilda. Frank knew he was full of shit. Everyone else knew it too. It was time for Frank to correct the record. Well, sort of. While Frank finally comes clean on the bogus lie about his supposed marriage to Gilda, it will become clear in a moment that he was not only confessing to one lie, but also adding further lies to the narrative. Yes, he confesses that he was a big liar all along, but he continues to lie in the process of this so-called confession.
We're not married, and the only reason we told people we're married, because first it was none of their business.
I lied because it's none of your business, as if that makes any sense.
But she is my wife. She is my wife. Maybe not on legal paper, but she is my wife and I'm her husband, common law.
Okay, so he's not married to Gilda, but now he makes a new claim. Let's listen to that again.
She is my wife. Maybe not on legal paper, but she is my wife and I'm her husband, common law.
Frank can't even confess to lying without telling even more lies, which brings us to Frank's fourth big lie about his relationship, that he and Gilda are legally recognized as being married by common law. This is, of course, complete bunk, because Gilda is legally married to Jimmy.
No rules are being broken for adultery or anything like that. She's never been married to the father of her children.
We now arrive at big lie number 5, that Gilda is not married, nor has she ever been married to Jimmy Jeniston, the father of her 8 children. This is likely among the primary reasons that Frank has been lying all along about the nature of his relationship, to try and conceal the fact that Gilda has been married all along. and that he and Gilda are in fact cohabitating together illegally in an adulterous relationship. So, can we prove this to be the case beyond any shadow of a doubt? We most certainly can. First of all, Jeniston is not Gilda's maiden or family name, but it is her legal name. While we saw that Frank was initially lying about the fact that he knew who Jimmy Jeniston was, he has since changed his tune and acknowledged that Jimmy is indeed the father of Gilda's children. Second, all of Gilda and Jimmy's children use Jeniston as their family name. Bryle, Lyle, Marga, Diana, John, and so on. All Jenistons. This alone proves that Gilda and Jimmy are married. Gilda never got an annulment, and if she did, she would no longer be legally required to carry the Jeniston family name as part of her own. But guess what? There's more. What better way to shed light on this matter once and for all than getting the truth straight from the horse's mouth? No pun intended. With the help of, let's just call him our little friend, an interesting Facebook conversation was able to be obtained. This is a conversation between Gilda, who goes by the name Robbie N. Son on Facebook, and our helpful friend. We'll translate this conversation to English as we go along. Gilda asks, "Who do you know on YouTube?" To which our friend, seeming to ignore her question, asks, "Are you the wife of Jimmy?" Gilda's reply, "Yes." And there you have it, folks. Yes. Not, "We were, but we're now annulled." Not, "No, I'm not married to Jimmy." A clear, unambiguous confirmation that she is the wife of Jimmy Jeniston. The conversation continues, and our friend asks, "But aren't you living with a foreigner now?" To which Gilda replies, "Why are you asking?" Our friend replies, "No reason." And Gilda, probably nervously curious by this point, insists by asking, "What do you mean, no reason?" Our friend doesn't seem to respond, and Gilda later answers by confirming that she lives with a foreigner and says, "Yes, and my children are also living here." That was the end of our conversation, as Gilda eventually decided to block our friend. So that's it. That seals the deal. Gilda's married. Frank and Gilda are committing adultery and have been doing so for 6 years. Frank is a big fucking liar. Full stop. Case closed. Frank has a reputation for destroying all of his relationships and being unable to get along civilly with anyone, evidenced by his damaged ties with family, being a complete loner in life, and constantly getting angry with just about everyone for no apparent reason. He has been disowned by his entire family, even publicly trashing his brother and daughter on YouTube. His own sister characterizes Frank as an asshole and insists that the rest of the family isn't like him. He has no connection to his grandchildren and is universally despised both on YouTube and in real life. This inability to maintain healthy relationships is common among the so-called cluster B personality disorders like narcissistic and borderline personality disorder. This raises the question, how is it that he's managed to be in a relationship with someone for 6 years? The answer is actually pretty simple. For one, Frank's toxic behavior and personality would not be compatible with a modern, independent, and assertive woman. Gilda comes from a background of deep hardship and adheres to traditional gender roles. She has a submissive personality, obedient to Frank's controlling temperamental nature, and has learned strategies for tolerating Frank's explosive outbursts of rage. In essence, Gilda has a lot to lose by terminating the relationship with Frank. Second, Frank has a deep sense of insecurity, particularly when it comes to his socioeconomic status. Being in a relationship with a woman from America would likely exacerbate these insecurities and further accentuate his feelings of inadequacy and underachievement. In the Philippines, Frank can experience a greater sense of adequacy due to the pervasive poverty in the country, making him feel more affluent in comparison to those around him, even though in reality he only lives on $18,000 a year. By U.S. measures, for a family of 4, this is living well below the poverty line. But in the Philippines, Frank can actually obtain some relative sense of what it feels like to be a provider. Gilda doesn't threaten Frank's insecurities because, for her, even though Frank is poor by first world standards, Frank has money. I suppose mentioning all of this isn't all that necessary at this point. Over the years, the truth has managed a way to reveal itself on its own. We've already had a strong hunch Gilda was married all along. We've observed with our own eyes and ears that this is no quote-unquote wonderful relationship. And we definitely know that Frank is a pathological liar. Still, it's worth putting the details of the truth out there for all to see. For all of the women Frank has insulted and trashed on YouTube in the most vile, toxic ways over the years. For the dozens of girlfriends and wives that Frank has defamed and slandered in the most ugly, disgusting ways so many times, this one's for you.